Now, for a professional photographer or enthusiast, workflow is an important thing, because what happens is you spend a lot of time clicking and capturing images, and then you come back home, and then you don't have the right computer, or you have a gaming PC probably, or you have a assembled PC, and then you're working on it. So now, but we've seen manufacturers bring out products specifically for content creators, which actually is just not a gimmick. It actually improves the workflow. So what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. I think, like I said, once you know that you're doing this professionally, you need the professional tools for you to help deliver work at that level. Obviously, as a hobbyist, you might not think it's important for you to invest that sort of money. But when you are going out there and you're charging a certain fee to your client, you want to be able to deliver that sort of quality back to them. And I think that's where being a professional really comes in, because while on a personal note, I might be like, you know what, this is okay, this will do, this works. With a client, with somebody who's investing time in you and money in you for you to deliver something to them, I think you have to bring the best that you can at that point of time. And that's where professional cameras and professional equipment that you use, including my laptop, come in. So, which is why if I'm shooting a professional, I will obviously use the best camera that I have. Similarly, I think it's also important to bring that to post-production. Now, with my laptop, I very recently got a Dell XPS 15 inches. And it's like you're saying, right? It's the creator's edition, which is they're focusing on this subcategory that suddenly formed because of this whole digital age, which is anybody can be a creator, and then anybody can create at a professional level. And it does a bunch of things that I think are really helpful for the kind of work that I do, which is the screen, for example. And any photographer, right? I mean, obviously, a gaming PC might give you a little bit more performance, but that will lean the screen more towards a faster refresh rate. Not so much at the accuracy of the colors, but for when I'm working on my images, I want the colors to be absolutely accurate. And this is like 100% Adobe RGB, without sort of just putting too many jargons out there. But the same camera profile that I'm shooting on my camera, it shows all of the colors here 100%. And so I know I'm able to see all the colors that I shot on my laptop, and it's calibrated. So, and I was just calibrating my laptop again. I do this every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And I know that when my client sees this image, I worked on it in a way that everything's calibrated. I make sure that all the colors that I want to be seen in a certain way are exactly spot on. One of the coolest things, and I don't know why Dell doesn't speak about it much, is it has an extra M.2 slot in the laptop. So I've put a 1 TB and I've ordered for another 2 TB to swap that 1 TB out. But honestly, so far I've been carrying extra hard drives and SSDs. But if I have a 2 TB M.2 in my laptop, that becomes one of my backup drives, and I don't have to think about then carrying multiple drives when I'm traveling. So all of these things are, they sound like, but it's a convenience. Do you really need it? But you will truly understand when you're out on the field and when you're backing up to your laptop itself. It's literally 10 minutes of backing up time versus 45 seconds. And then how much that translates over a year, you see how much more easier it makes for you. And obviously, when you're talking purely from a work point of view, your time is your money, and how much you are investing in that will really sort of pay back.
I feel the color accuracy is very important, and people don't really take it seriously. And also having a laptop which actually works is for content creation is important, because speed and time, these are two very important things. So even if you're not a professional, if you can actually see what you shot exactly the way you shot it, and you can edit it faster, and your computer or your laptop is helping you doing it, then it's awesome. Then your enthusiasm will continue.
And again, another thing I really love about this laptop is it has an SD card reader in it. And I'm telling you, it sounds like small things, but I don't have to live the dongle life. It makes life so much easier. Because my other accessories are all USB-C, my hard drives are USB-C. But when it came to SD card, I'd still have to put a dongle to read it. I don't have to anymore. So that's good.
How Siddharth also spoke about speed and time when it comes to, client expectations, right? So take us through this process, from the time you get a brief till the time you actually execute it and deliver, right? So has there ever been a situation where you've come under pressure of time alone Like, because there are certain brands, there are certain clients, they need quick delivery. And even if you are the most creative person in the world, you need to have some time to actually think of a concept, to actually deliver, to execute, right? So take us through this, and also talk about something maybe like a creative block of a sort. Like maybe you're going through a creative block, and then how do you tackle that as a photographer and as a professional photographer for that matter?
Right. Another great question. I think for you to, it starts, the homework starts before. So I have, and I don't stop shooting on my phone every single day. What I'm basically doing all the time is collecting references of patterns, of light, of texture, of movement, of direction, of multiple different things that I am observing with the everyday life. And all of these go into an idea folder for me. Like I have a subcategorized folder saying light, I have a subcategorized folder saying movement, and all of these things go in there, right? So I'm constantly, instead of looking for inspiration or looking for something on a certain day when the brief comes to you, I'm trying to constantly prepare myself to a point where if a brief comes today, then I already have a set of things that have inspired me already from my everyday life that I can implement here. So that's the first thing that I changed a while ago with my approach, which is every time I'm out, I'm always looking for interesting things, observations about how I can probably use this another day. And I think that really helps me speed up my workflow, which is if I get a certain brief where they want to create a certain set of images, but I've not professionally gone out and shot it, but I have images on my phone, I already have references to show them. Which is also one of the reasons why I shoot so much on my phone, is I have references for such a diverse set of topics that if a client wants to see that, then I already have it with me. And that's also the same ease of delivery is why I use my phone to shoot a lot as well. So there's this very interesting campaign that I was shooting for a cement company in Rajasthan, and then we had 1 day, 1.5 days for recce. No, 1 day for recce, and then 1.5 days to finish shooting. I mean, we had to shoot 10 images that captured cement in a rural setting, in what it meant to be homes and what it meant to people in Rajasthan. And like 1 day, right? So I did the same thing, because instead of having to sit here and go transfer my data back and then send it to somebody, I would just shoot reference images and then just quickly draw over them saying this is what I want in this frame, this is how we are going to shoot it, and immediately get a pre-approval for what we were going to shoot, instead of then shooting that and investing time and it coming back later in feedback saying this won't work, right? So we already do that on the go. So the guy who's managing the brand is already with us, and he's sending these images to them with my notes. And then they come back to us saying, we're okay with all of these things. So one of them was, the school we were shooting at, and there were chota beam drawings and stuff like that all over. And they said, these are IP of another brand, so we don't want these to be in the shot. So can we find a frame that avoids it? So you get feedback like this instantly, right? So you're constantly finding ways to save time. And again, this wouldn't have been possible 4 or 5 years ago, probably, right? I mean, it would still take some time, because the guys who make decisions at brands are not going to be, with one photographer on site saying, show me what you, it won't work that way, right? So here you're able to communicate with them very quickly. And now when I have a set of images that I know I'm going to shoot, then you just go back and implement it the next day. So when I'm out as well, if I have that creative block, I'm obviously going to go back on all the things I've observed before that and try to see if I can find those elements, at the spot that I'm shooting in. And I think the other thing that I do with creative blocks, again, is write. So if I've been to a place too many times, and during this lockdown, I live in rural Bangalore, and I've been to the places around far too many times. So there are times when I go there and just sit and write. I just write observations, because you can tend to get fixated on one thing when you're looking through, your viewfinder or your phone, and you can be fixated with one frame waiting for things to happen, but you miss out on many things happening around you. So, but when you're just writing down, you say, this frame, but I'd love something for it to happen here, but then quickly look somewhere away, saying the light was coming from here, or at this time it got really, really busy, and there's a small gap through which dust was coming. Just make notes like that. And then I go back there again with my camera to then explore it in a new light. Because if you're doing something repetitively, it will get you at a point. And then you just have to find ways to break that.
There's a buzzword, hybrid cameras. So wherever you see, people are talking hybrid cameras. That's because video is also becoming more important. People are migrating towards video. Now your phone can take 4K videos, and camera systems are catching up. So tell me, what do you think about the hybrid camera system, and how important do you think video is today and will be tomorrow for content creators?
Oh, extremely important. Extremely important. I think it becomes, I think it's a decision of who the people who are consuming the content becomes. And it's gotten to a point where if you see how many people read something versus how many people watch a video, or how many people listen to a podcast, the numbers moving towards the thing that people don't have to hold to a device, but they're constantly listening or just looking at something. I don't know how it will work in terms of evolution for us eventually, if you're getting used to that sort of thing. But I make it a point to go back to books every so often to sort of keep that part of me engaged. But I think videos are very, very important part. And I think also the sort of the money and the platforms investing in it, which is your Instagram focusing on IGTV and Reels. YouTube obviously has been doing its own thing for the longest time. And then they're obviously now promoting even more content creators to have access. And video is becoming, that thing, right? And I can see, and for me, obviously, I didn't start shooting videos, but I started shooting videos somewhere along the way. And then I've shot TV shows, I've shot movies, I've shot a whole bunch of things. But I started as a photographer who learned video along the way, because you already know the basics of framing, but then you have to learn movement and things like that. So those are, sort of upgradable skills that you can learn along the way. The focus becomes, I think, what you're making videos about. Because again, there is so much already out there. So how are you drawing your audience's attention? How are you keeping the attention, over a period of time? I think that then becomes the new challenge. I think with already so many things that people have to figure out in their lives, it's another challenge for people to crack. What is a reel? What is a story? What is the difference? Things like this that are going on through people's minds. But definitely, I think, and I love the idea about hybrid cameras. I think it's great that, again, I am all for accessibility for people having access to all of the technology in the world. I think when enough people have access to tech is when you'll start seeing some incredibly great things, because there are so many people with so many great thoughts who don't have access to this stuff, who now you start seeing, because of smartphones and the kind of stories that are coming out of people making small videos and films on their phones about their ideas. I think that's really putting a lot more talent out there for people to see.
Like you also mentioned that, everything's becoming accessible, right? So there's a younger generation of photographers who are coming up, right? So tell us, is it important for the young generation of photographers to actually know the complete history of photography, like how people used to photograph back then, like 20, 30 years back, during the manual photo cameras and everything like that, in the manual light meters and everything. Because back then, what I feel is that back then, because of such, difficult ways of photographing a subject, people knew the value of that subject and the value of the storytelling. And nowadays, it's like, you just it's a point and shoot thing. Like even your thing is phone photography. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has a camera on their phones. So it's just like, click, shoot and edit it on whatever Photoshop or Lightroom, and that's it. If it looks good, it's great. It gets likes, but ultimately, I guess the value of the subject and the story is lost somewhere.
Right. Again, it's something definitely to think about, because again, you have to decide who is coming from this, from whose point of view, which is, if it's just people who love taking photos for the fun of it, I don't think it matters. But for people who are seriously interested in learning more about the art and the craft, I think it really, starts.
No, I'm actually talking about the people who are going to get into it professionally, ultimately.
Exactly, right? So I think that's what, again, starts setting you apart from other people, right? So when you move from just being like a weekend hobbyist to learning a little more about the art and the craft for it to, sort of help you take better images and see the world better, I think it absolutely plays a massive role. I think the thing that it does, it won't change incredibly how you see the world. But what it will do is make you respect all of those decisions that happened over the years that got it to a point where some camera is sitting in your hand at this size, right? And you start valuing that a lot more. There's this beautiful place in Delhi called Museo. It's, I think, one of Asia's largest photography museums, and nobody sort of knows about it much. But if you ever get the chance...
No.
Yeah, I have.
No, I was asking Siddharth is based out of Delhi, actually.
No, you should check it out. And it's run by this gentleman, Auditya, and there are like cameras from like a couple of centuries back, or like 150 years ago. And there's an entire journey of every single thing, over there. And for me, it hit me even harder when I was there. I've obviously had the chance to sort of shoot on film before and speak to veteran photographers who talk about the journey. But it's a whole other thing looking at all of these cameras, there were some that are so bulky and, you would have to put so much effort to take that one photo. that we just drag a shutter today and it takes 20 photos per second, and like, oh, okay, one of them will work, right? I think it'll change that shift. I think it'll make you value that effort, that extra effort where you would rather try to get that in fewer images than the spray and pray, right? You don't go and then you hope one of them turns out okay. I think it makes you value those things a little more. I think my time at museum, if you ever get the chance, you should go there. But it's a great place for you to understand, the history of photography, and I think that really helps you. I think even when it was digital and we had optical viewfinders, there's this Ashima Narayan, who used to be the photo editor for Nat Geo Traveler India, and Amy Vitali, who's a Nat Geo photographer. We were in Sri Lanka for a shoot, and then they would do this thing where you tape your viewfinder when you're out shooting, and then you shoot the entire day, right? And then not the viewfinder, your LCD screen. You look through.
That is how I was taught actually in my college. Like, you
Correct.
have to tape it off, and you just have to depend on the settings
you shoot the entire day without looking at your images, and then that helps you make so many faster decisions the next time, because you learn from you go back and look at your images and you're like, oh my god, and I've been through that as well, right? I mean, because you take so much of this technology for granted, but you miss out on these smaller details, these skills that will help you make faster decisions. And again, time is everything, especially with photography. And it's that difference between you capturing a moment or missing it. And this helps you make those really quick micro adjustments without even, you get to a point where it becomes second nature to you. And that's how photographers used to be, and that's what you want to get yourself to. You do it every single day, practice, and you get to a point where it becomes second nature to you. So I think from that point of view, absolutely understanding photography, where it comes from, the journey it's been through, and just being absolutely thankful for all of the decisions that they made for it to get to a point where we are today.
Because of the COVID pandemic, we all are not going out. So we are not going out exploring places. Travel and tourism is also shut. So right now people are sitting at home. And what is your message to them?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wish I knew. Because we're all obviously trying to figure our way through this. I mean, nobody knows how long this is going to be. Nobody knows how long it will take for it to get better. Some people say, it's already fine. Why don't you just go out? Some people say probably as late as 2024. So I think it's obviously like a true test for everybody's resolve right now. And this is one of those things where I think you're finding it with people and with things that you want to do in life, where people say, I will stick with you through thick and thin. Now is when it's testing, people really will. But I think, like Rachit was asking earlier, about reinventing yourself and, pivoting in a different direction. For me, I think I've obviously had thoughts about, creating stuff for myself. Obviously, for the longest time, you've been creating for clients. So what if you pivot to creating stuff for yourself, and how would that go? Obviously, those thoughts are something that are going through my head. I've, thank God, been sort of continue to be blessed with work, and I continue to work even right now. Because of, again, small adjustments that I made. So I love tech. So I get to test early software versions of camera software. I get to test prototypes of cameras. I get to do things like that don't require me to be out all the time necessarily, but just to test, just from a pure, because I love tech and I've been doing this since 2012. So it's important to have that one skill, obviously, that you absolutely love. But it's great for you to also see what else you can do with that, right? In what other ways you can approach that same, it's still about photography, it's still about images, but what else can you do around that thing? It doesn't have to be just that one thing. And I realized this when it happened to me. Obviously it wasn't as bad as COVID, but in 2017, I had a cartilage tear in my left wrist at the airport in Sydney. I was holding my suitcase, it was 25 kilos, and I was about to put on the weighing bridge, and somebody ran from behind, and my hand twisted. And then that ripped my cartilage really well. And I couldn't hold a camera properly for 8-9 months. I was under rehab. And at that time, it was, what do you do, right? I mean, it's the same thing as now, which is I wasn't traveling much. I wasn't shooting much. So which is when I started focusing on these other things that I could do. And then I spoke to a few friends of mine who've been in similar situations. And it's about finding, things to keep yourself occupied. Because I think if you just let yourself be empty and treat this as a vacation, it might get to you. And it doesn't mean go out there, find for work, hustle. I'm not saying any of those things. But the way I try to keep myself positive is, those things that I've always wanted to do but made an excuse about learning, or that book I wanted to read. I just took this time to also put attention towards that, because I think from a personal development point of view, I think it's really handy, and I didn't have any excuses anymore, right? And again, I can't really advise people because it works differently for different people. This is how I keep myself busy. It might not necessarily work for other people, because the other thing that's come out at this point is obviously people's mental health and how it's affecting that. And you can't, with mental health, like with regular medicine, find a one thing fits all, and everybody has to sort of take different approaches. So when I had that cartilage tear, I started focusing more on this tech side of things, about how I can do things if I couldn't use my hand. So I started consulting about creating images. I would speak with a few agencies about helping them decide imagery for their campaign. So I used my knowledge about how I did things for a few other things that didn't necessarily mean I had to shoot. Right? So I found those things along the way that helped me diversify the kind of things that I can do. And I also took things that I was passionate about. I'm now part of a sim racing company. Right? We make simulator cockpits. And that's something that, like I said, I want to be a driver all my life. But all those things just sort of eventually add up. I was like, what, I'm at home. I have a sim at home. I just kept driving. And then the same thing, I started talking to them about feedback, about things that can be improved about the product. And they said, hey, why don't you become part of the company? And I'm part of their company today. So that's the other thing that I learned, which is initially I was too rigid about I have to do just one thing. But you can obviously find multiple things to do with things that you enjoy doing, and then figure out a way for it to work. But the fact that you're doing something in a time where you didn't think that you could do anything at all, especially in a time as crippling as this, I think that itself was a massive relief to me. I think it's not give up on your goals, but try and find alternate ways for you to still work towards that, while just keeping yourself happy and healthy. I think that's the most important thing in this, at this point of time.
This interaction was one of the most entertaining and very inspiring for even Rachit and me.
Very kind.
And we wish you all the best and a lot of luck with your future endeavors, and also the sim racing.
Thank you.
And also car photography, right?
Yes, very soon.
Thank you for
talking. It's going on my reading list right now.